everybody, I am John Wood. Thank you for stopping by my channel, J Wood Fly Fishing, here on YouTube. And thanks for checking out this video. Today I'm going to do a video of a hopper pattern by my friend Kyle Bakko of Billings, Montana. This is a hopper that he calls the Moonshine hopper. And before we get started tying it, I just want to run through the materials real quick that we're going to use on this. First off, we're going to start with a Komodo wide gap dry fly, 1X long, K106 in size 6. It looks something like this. It's about a medium weight hook, but it is super stout and extremely sharp. It's a really good hook. The foam that we're going to use for the body on this fly is Rainey's 4mm cross-link foam. It's a sheet foam that's 4mm thick. And I like this because it is super duper dense. If you squeeze on it, it's the most dense sheet foam that I know of on the market. Now once we get that on the hook, we are going to add a wing, which is hairline midge flash in root beer. Then we're going to put the wing itself on there, which is, as you can see, this one's going to be olive on the one we're tying. I want to have a little contrast between the body and the wing. And it's just a cutout using a large Chernobyl cutter, which you can get from River Road Creations of Stevensville, Montana. Again, this is the large Chernobyl. And the way I get that wing to form that way, I'm going to go ahead and show you that because I like to get my materials prepped ahead of time when I'm tying, and I will tie up a whole bunch, prep up a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to take my bodkin and right here, and I'm just going to press it, which I'm doing this on my vise base so you won't see it. I'm just going to press that and create a little crease in the middle. That just helps me get a good even fold. I'm going to fold that together, get it nice and even, and then I'm going to take my Loctite super glue gel. Whatever super glue you have will work. I just happen to prefer this Loctite liquid because it's really easy to work with. I can see how much I'm getting out because of the clear nozzle. Now I'm just going to put just a small little swipe in there, not too much. You just want to dampen it, and then using that crease that I created, fold that together and hold it shut. I know you can't see what I'm doing because of my big fingers. There we go. And then I just fold that together, and then you can open that back up where that's going to lay over the top of the fly later. And so that is now prepped. The next thing we're going to have is another cutout for this, and that is going to be again using the end of the large Chernobyl tapered cutter. After that, we will glue that down, and then let's see, the next material we're going to put on there will be the wing legs on the front, these yellow legs, and that is MFC, and it's barred sexy floss in yellow. And then for the legs on the back, we're going to use a long strand, and I have spools of this stuff. It's pink, and it's just spandex floss, and then I bar it myself. Well, let's get started. I'm going to get that hook in the vise and show you how I attach the foam. Now first we're going to glue this on there. To do that, we're going to start with this cutout, and that is the large beaver tail cutter from, again, River Road Creations, and it's the beaver tail style cutter. You can also use the medium beaver style cutter if you want, just like straight out of the cutter. That's, you just nip the little tip off there and you're ready to go. But what we're going to do is we're going to trim that piece up. Sorry about that. Trim that piece up a little bit so it's got a more of a square shape. Simple to do. I'm just going to take my scissors and right there at that head segment, I'm going to cut that off. Just nip that right off, and there we go. Now I'm going to take my scissors and come back here on the side and cut off those bulges of that center section. Do those one at a time. And there we go. And that's what we've got there. Now that equals the same thing as if I took this cutter and just use a 1.3 inch long section of it. You can see that it's almost identical. And it's close enough that you will not know the difference on the finished fly. And the next thing we're going to do is just going to nip the corners because the head on this fly is going to be that glued 1mm foam. There we go. Now to get this to stay on the hook, it helps to just take your razor blade, and I'm doing this off camera here, and I'm just going to kind of cut into that foam. Not a lot, just real shallow little slice, right? It's pretty close to the center, as much as you get it. There we go. And you can see I'm not very deep in there, just a really shallow cut. Deepen it just a hair there towards the eye. There we go. Now you can see I've just got a score down the belly. I'm going to take the eye of the hook and I'm just going to run that cut over the eye of the hook. That way it's opened up a little bit and it's just easier to get it on there. Now just a tiny little bit of super glue along the top. You don't want to get too carried away with this because you put too much on there. It takes a long time for it to set up. You can see I got a bubble there, so I'm going to take my paper towel and get the excess off. And then position this and shove that hook shank in there. Give it a little bit of a roll real quick. And then squeeze it. Put some good solid pressure on it. Don't over compress it. But then once you squeeze it down, you need to hold it in place for a good 15 to 20 seconds. And you can see I'm pulling the tail down because I want to expose the back of the shank of the hook so I can do the rear segmentations with our thread. Now I've got one that's already prepped. Like I said, I like to do a bunch at a time so that I can just keep moving once I get going. And that also gives me more time for this piece of foam, the super glue, to set up completely before I start working with it, because we're going to be yanking around on it quite a bit. Now I'm going to set that in the hook backwards, as you can see. Take my thread and I want to score across the top where I want that thread to be. So I'm going to pull that thread up in there, right up to the hook, and then just squeeze it down. You can see I'm making a crease there. And then I can flip it over and start the tying process using that groove, and I know I'm exactly where I want to be. I'm going to move this back here on the back side. There we go. Squeeze it. I've got that first wrap on there. I'm just going to come and squeeze down on that because I want to compress that foam quite a bit, and that's going to keep that thread from gathering as I make those wraps. Clip the tag. Now just come up here and I'm going to make it a segmentation by jumping across on top. I'll show you here in just a second. I'm going to do the same thing. As I make that first wrap, I'm going to tension it up. There we go. That keeps that thread from gathering on the bottom side when you make that compression. I'm going to straighten that up just a hair. There we go. That's all in there. Now, when you're making these segmentations, One thing you want to keep in mind is if I come around here and start making that segmentation on the side, I'm going to end up with thread on the side. So bring your thread all the way up into that gap, then kink it over to where you want it to be with it still in that gap, and repeat that process on the first wrap. Squeeze, come over, lock it in the gap, make my wraps, lock it in the gap. I'm going to get 5 segmentations. That little back segmentation's pretty tight, tiny. And you can see there, they get smaller as we work our way back on the fly. And once I get the segmentations, I'm just going to work my way back up towards the hook. And you don't have to make these wraps ultra tight. That foam is always going to want to push back on them and keep tension on the thread. Now I'm just going to do a quick little whip finish here. It doesn't have to be like ultra tight. We're going to come back later on and glue right over that. Clip my tag. We're going to turn that back around. And I'm going to use the same procedure to mark where I want my thread to be. Turn the fly upside down. Wrap my thread around there where I want the head, which is just a little bit back behind the eye. Make sure that it's square on the foam, and get my little indentations there. I'm going to start it the same way, using those indentations. Make one wrap, and then as I come around on that full wrap, squeeze that head down and tighten up my thread. I'm going to pull on that tag also to make sure there are no gathers. And then let's take a look. We're nice and clean. And you can see how that hook is set in that foam from when we cut that slot earlier. Make a couple more wraps, and then we're going to segment this and create 4 segmentations. Sorry, getting a phone call there. There we go. Do the same thing. Come around, cinch the thread really good on that first wrap so that the thread doesn't gather. And then I got to kind of off a little bit there. Get that right in that. Let me do that again. Let's do it again. There we go. That's back a little further than I want. You see what I got. There we go. Turn this up where I can see where I'm going, so I'm going back in the same groove. There we go. Alright. Then do our last segmentation back here. Doing the same procedure. Get a few wraps nice and tight, and then I'm going to jump forward 1, and I'm at the second break segmentations. Now I've got my midge flash in root beer. I'm just going to cut off about 4 or 5 strands right at where the zip tie is. There we go. Take those, double them over, and even up the ends. Pinch that, and then right where the fold is, go ahead and cut those. Now I've got about 3 inches here, so I'm going to set it right about the middle over my thread. Lock that down with a couple wraps, position it exactly where I want it. And I'm going to create a fold with my scissors. And then come back and lock that in place, and I can pull that down a little bit. There we go. And that just kind of helps to gather all of this flash material in the same location. Now we're going to take our pre-prepared wing right here and just position that right over the top of the body and then bring the tail, the back end of that wing to where it's just a bit longer than the tail. And you can see where my fold is, where it ends on the wing, is right there where we whip finish that tail section, and that's kind of important. And you will see here in just a second why. Get that wrap. Make sure I'm even. Get one more. Now I'm going to take my super glue again, and I'm going to put a little dabble right there where that came together. And we're going to drop that down while we pull back on the flash, and let that super glue get down on there and glue that thread where it's whip finished really good. I've put enough on there that it is going to flow down in there, and if you take one of these apart, you would find that it's just kind of and then kind of smash that a little bit, but that's cool because as soon as I trim this tail off, I don't really want that smashed, but this foam is a little bit thin. I'm going to take this indicator, lay it on there, and we're going to put that right on top. Get it centered up. Squeeze that down. And there's our indicator. Now we're going to do our legs, which I forgot to mention when we were going through the prep. And all that is a 3/16, like 1/8, 3/16 inch wide strip of 1 millimeter foam. For this one, if I was doing solid tan, I would use the tan, but for this one, I'm going to do the olive because I like it matches the olive legs. And that's you need about 2 inches total. This one's a little bit longer than that. I just cut these out of scraps. Fold that over, give it a good pinch, and then take your scissors and taper those ends. And you can get them pretty even by doing it with the fold as opposed to doing them independently. Then I'm just going to clip that end where it's slightly squared on the tip. And then we take these, put one on each side. I like to line them up, and you'll see here in just a second when I do the one on the other side. Line them up with that third segmentation from the end of the tail. And this is very, very similar. Actually, it's exactly like the thighs on Eric Paramore's Thunder Thighs hopper. I get that lined up. I want it kind of an angle because, the thighs on a hopper are pointing upward. So that's what we're trying to imitate. And just kind of lock those in place. Now I'm going to leave those on there for a moment. So I'm going to bring my thread up there. If I trim that down, sometimes that gets caught in there, gnarled, and causes this leg to move out of place. So I like to get that wrap in there before I trim that, and then just pull that indicator back. And this is where I'm going to make my crossover to jump up here to the head segment. Now as I pull that down, it kind of torques that thin foam around towards that side. So I'm going to grab it from this side and hold it in place as I come around to complete that wrap. And then I can turn that upside down and see if I need to straighten it up, which I do. There we go. And you can see that's pretty even. And I'm just going to now lock these things off. And before we lock our indicator down in the front with thread, we're going to form the head on this hopper. I do want to pull that over just a little bit. There we go. Now to do this, you just put a little dab of super glue up towards the front. Pretty healthy little spot right there, and then bring it down across the front. You don't have to get too carried away, but you do want enough for everything to be dampened so that it will stay together. Now I like to start right at the end, pinch that together until it holds, and then push it back towards the head. Now you might get a little squeeze out right there. If you do, try not to glue yourself to the fly. Keep your paper towel handy so that you can dabble it off if you need to. I think I did just a perfect amount on that one right there. Now you can cut that now, but it's kind of rushing it, so I'm going to go ahead and put the indicator flap down and squeeze it, and the thread breaks. Let me fix that. It's always something. I have found sometimes that if you get that super glue on the thread, it does weaken it in that one spot. There we go. Alright, I'm just going to pull that back again. Grab my tag. Take a couple of rounds. And then clip those tags off. And give it a couple more rounds. Get in here and get that tag out of the way. There we go. Now, back to where we were. We're going to cinch that indicator flap down with a couple of wraps. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut that at an angle. That's a little sharp. There we go. And you can see that's, if you look closely at a live hopper, you'll see their head is angled that way. And that is a really cool representation of it. Now before I trim this, we're going to put the front legs on and get it whip finished. And here's my Barred Sexy Floss in yellow. It's a size medium. I'm just going to cut it right next to where the bundle is tied. Take one end, and I like to find the natural curve of it. And this one's kind of got a twist. One end curves one way, the other end curves the other way. But the end that I'm tying down, I want that curve towards the body of the fly, and that keeps it from splaying out too far when you do that right there. And you can see there's a curve going back towards the tail. Get another wrap. Now, because this has one end curve one way, one end curve the other, I'm going to give it a half twist so that this end is also curving towards the body of the fly. And this makes it a little bit trickier because you're fighting that twist in the head. And sometimes I get it just right, and sometimes I don't. I don't fret too much about it, but if I can get it to do what I just did, I am very happy. Now, I've got a couple wraps on there. Now all I need to do is whip finish it. Don't have to get too carried away. We're just going to get 4 or 5 wraps on there with that whip finisher. Cinch it up real good, and I'm going to tell you, you don't really have to worry too much about that whip finish. This foam is always compressing back against the thread, keeping everything tight. Now, for the front legs, I'm just going to reach in there, snip that. We're going to finish our indicator by cutting it off a little bit, and then nip the corners. You can see there. Now before I put those back legs on, I am going to spot it. And we're going to use our Sharpie Extreme Marker. Black is what I use. Bakko uses brown on all of his. I don't think it matters a whole lot. First we're going to do the eye. And I'm going to turn that up at an angle and just tap it in there and get kind of an oval. There we go. And then flip it over, get our body spots underneath. And then on the side, starting on the segment right behind those 4 body spots, do 3 on that side and 3 on this side. Now for our back legs. Again, I said I use this, I like the strands because I can tie each end, and I like to tie them so that there is a left hand and a right hand knot. And let me show you what that looks like. When you put those two next to each other, they are going in opposite directions. And I hope you can make that out, because it helps to get the legs to go the direction that you want. So the knot that's on your right there towards the back of the fly, that is the one that is going on the fly on that side. And the reason is, when I slip that on there, you can see the direction that it wants to go. Let me see if I can get that angle right. There we go. that's the direction that it wants to go. It's going to be down and slightly back. And I just pull that until the knot cinches down on the leg and kind of pull it in the direction that I want it to go. Let's see if that worked. Why, yes it did. And I'm just going to bring this over here on the other one. We're going to do the exact same thing. Slip that on there. Come on, get on there. This particular foam is really thin. There we go. Open that up. Get that on there, and we do the same thing. Pull it. There we go. And once I clip that, I think these legs are going to be doing what I want them to do. That one wants to go forward, which I am not too miffed about that. When you pull these legs back, which they're probably just going to be going like this in the water, so it's not really important. That thing is just going to flop around. This will get those out there, get a lot of movement along with the front legs, and that's going to be a really good fish attractor, because you know, when a hopper gets in the water, that's not his natural habitat, and it's just usually they're just going to town until they die. So there you have it. That is Kyle Bakko's Moonshine hopper. If you'd like to see more of his work, you can find him at Big Sky Bum on Instagram and Kyle Bakko on YouTube. And if you like what you've seen today here on Jaywood Fly Fishing, watching this little video, if it's been any help to you at all, please hit that subscribe button so that you can get notifications the next time a video comes up. And until then, peace, love, and fly fishing, my friends.